Hi friends, I'm Abby and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about all of the books that I read in the month of April and everything else that I got up to. April was not a great reading month for me. I spoke about it in my May TBR that I struggled quite a lot with my reading in April. My big plan for April was to read Rhythm of War and I did not even get very far through it. I just did not do much reading at all in April, and Rhythm of War in some ways as part of it, I was still really enjoying it. I really struggled with my reading time, and it's like my worst reading month since, I don't know, 2016 in like 8 years. It was a really bad reading month. I don't even have Rhythm of War to show for it. I literally got to like the end of the month. I finished a book like in the first couple of days of the month, and then I did not finish a book until like the 26th or something. It was a struggle. It was a struggle. I did have 2 work trips in April, which I guess did disrupt things a little bit, but not really. So the first of these, I had a conference in Austria, which was like the weirdest of weathers, like the absolute weirdest, because it was, I don't know, mid-20s for 2 days. The third day was like teens. It was fine. So and then the final day, it was a like snowstorm. It was snowing so much. I was like, it was so hard to know what to pack because the weather was just everything, all seasons, everything. And then I was in France a week later, again with work, and it was very snowy. It just snowed the whole time. So it was like, get all the winter gear back out. So I did have that sort of disrupting the month, but then I felt like I was just tired. I was just tired the whole month. Like I'd get home from work, eat dinner and be like, bedtime. And so I'd read, I don't know, 10 pages of Rhythm of War and I would be enjoying it, but it would only be 10 pages. And so I just didn't feel like I was making any progress there because all I was doing was falling asleep at 9 p.m. and then waking up at like my normal time, and I just didn't find any chance in the day to do any reading. And I wasn't taking Rhythm of War on the train to work, even it's only like a 15-minute train anyway, but Rhythm of War's quite a heavy book for that. There was a lot of disruption, and then I did have like some weekends and some times when in theory I should have been able to read, but it didn't really happen. Otherwise, I did go to Fantasy in the Court, which is hosted by Goldsborough, which was good fun. I guess those were some of my more impactful things that took over the month. There was no real reason why I didn't do much reading. I just didn't do much reading. But I will wrap up what I did manage to read, because what I read, I enjoyed. I had some really good books. I had some books that I really thoroughly enjoyed. So there is a positive that there was quality in what I finished. So I did manage to finish 3 books in the month of April, coming to 1,572 pages. And on top of that, I did read about 200 pages of Rhythm of War. So 3 of the books were fantasy, all 3 were adult. And then I had 1 4-star, 1 4.5 star and 1 5-star. So very good in terms of my star ratings. And then 1 continued a series, which I then ended up finishing as well. So I read 2 finales. I feel very comfortable that I managed to finish off 2 series. So that is at least 1 positive of April, that I managed to get my series a bit more in control, which I think puts my on the go at about 23. I haven't checked the spreadsheet in a while, probably need to update that and do that, but I'm in the low 20s, which I feel is like a good number. And quite a few of those are series that I want to restart from the beginning, and series where I am up to date and waiting for the next release. So actually I don't have that many that I can like keep going myself with. So I'm very happy with where my series are at currently, especially because I finished off 2 this month. So really positive there. Without further ado, we'll just get into these things. So one of the series that I finished off this month was The War of Lost Hearts by Carissa Broadbent, this book being Mother of Death and Dawn. So I read the first 2 books in this series in March, pretty much binged them. That I read the first one as I was going on holiday, pretty much like on the plane there. I read the majority of it, and then I read the second book whilst on holiday, and then I didn't get around to reading the third book. It did come with me, but it didn't get picked up during that time, and so I ended up picking this up in April. I was like, this is long, but I feel like reading it. So this series, we're following our main character, Tisana, and she has been brought up in slavery, and at the beginning of the first book, she attempts to buy her freedom, which all goes a little bit wrong, and she ends up sort of on the run, escaping this place that she has dreamed about her entire life, where she would be able to train her magic. So she has got magic, but she has always sort of just controlled it herself, or sort of tried to teach herself how to use it, and she wants to be able to learn how to use it properly so that she can free her people from the slavery that she has been brought up in. And so she goes there and sort of starts training in her magic, and it's got a very interesting politics and world building, and I also quite enjoyed the romantic relationship that we explore throughout the series. I would say this is a fantasy romance, but it really leans more on the fantasy elements than the romantic elements. That the romance is a bit more of a subplot, I would say. It's probably the right balance for me, that I prefer in my more romantic leading fantasies, that it's more of a fantasy, that it's more like 70% fantasy, 30% romance, that the romance doesn't take over. So I quite enjoyed that. I liked the way that the fantastical elements were done in this. I found it a very interesting world, interesting magic, interesting political scene that we are experiencing. I liked our characters. I think this wrapped up quite well. I do think it was a little bit long for this third book, that some of it was a bit undulating, that it did drag in a few places, that it wasn't a complete like race through the pages. And I guess the first and second book I raced through the pages more because I had all that time where I was just on holiday, not doing anything, just reading, whereas this one had to be interspersed with my daily life, so maybe that also slowed me down a little bit, or made it feel a bit slower. But I am happy with the way that this wrapped up and the way that it ended, and I do think it's a really solid series. I think I prefer, because I've now read everything of Chris Broadbent, I do prefer the Chronicles of Nyaxia series with The Serpent and the Wings of Night. I'd have preferred that duology and that world, but I think this is a really strong series still, but it's just that I can see the progress that she's made as a writer, so I guess that's all positive, it's going in the right direction, but I do think this is really solid, and I have continued to really enjoy everything that Chris Broadbent has put out. And then the other two books are part of the same series. So I read at the very beginning of the month, I think it was at the end of March going into April, I read Tower of Thorns. And then at the very end of the month, I read Den of Wolves. So wrapping up the Blackthorn and Grimm series by Juliette Marillier. I love these. I absolutely love this series. I loved the first book when I read it in March, and I just could not stop thinking about it. And I was like, I have to just keep reading this series. I have to keep reading it because I loved it so much. And I love the characters. I love the world. I love the exposition and the writing style. It's slow, but I just sink into it. I just sink into this. In the first book, we meet Blackthorn and Grimm, who are both in this prison-like environment. They've been locked up due to just living their lives, really, by the evil lord of the area that they are in. And at the beginning of the first book, Blackthorn has been in prison for about a year, and she is due to stand trial the next day, and is going to present all of her case. But in the night leading up to that, a fae being says, I will give you a deal. I will set you free from this place, but you must promise me that you will not try to get revenge for 7 years, and you will go and live up in the north and be there and live your life and go back to being a healer and do your thing. And she's like, okay, fine. I really want my revenge, but this is the only way I'm actually going to live, so okay, I'll meet your terms. She escapes. Grimm, who's also in the prison, follows her, and they go north, where they meet one of our other main characters, Oren, who is the prince for that area. And there are, through the series, different like magical fairy tale like twists and turns and sort of tales that you are trying to uncover the mystery of. So there's one in each book, these different sort of folklore fairy tale like mysteries that you are trying to piece together and unearth. And so they do stand alone in that sense, that each book has a fairy tale mystery that you are figuring out. But then there is the overarching plot of Blackthorn wanting to get her revenge on this lord that has wronged her, and the relationship between Blackthorn and Grimm and their friendship and the sort of the development of the characters. I absolutely love the setting. I think Juliette Marillier does such a good job with the exposition and setting up the world and these characters. They feel so believable. Like all of the relationships and the dynamics between characters and the whole setting, it's all described in such luscious detail, and it just makes you go, I can picture it. It is like a rural medieval island that these are set in. She weaves in such interesting fairy tale elements to it, with these fairies that are good in some instances, bad in other instances, not romanticising them at all. I would say that there are definitely dark elements in these series, that some of the trials that our characters go through are definitely not pleasant, that Juliette Marillier does not shy away from like darker topics within these books, but I think they do always have a message of like hope and resilience, and they're quite comforting to read in some ways, I would say, as well. So I've really thoroughly loved reading this series. I would strongly recommend it. I think the third book wraps up everything really well. I just love them. I just love them. I would recommend these to everybody to read. Hopefully I've gushed about them enough that you will attempt picking this series up. It definitely stands with Daughter of the Forest, which is another series that I've read from her, or it's the Seven Waters series. So I've read the first 3 books, and I know that there is a continuation which I have not read yet. Daughter of the Forest being my favourite one within that series. So they definitely stand up with that, although that series is very much multi-generational, so each book sort of stands by itself, whereas this is a series in that it does continue despite there being like a unique mystery in each. I did like how she built this one in terms of having a continued plot line between all 3 books, and seeing how everything was like building to something. Love this. So yeah, definitely some highs despite there being limited numbers of books. There were some real highs this month. And then, as I mentioned, I did start Rhythm of War. I didn't get very far in. I got 224 pages into this behemoth. I haven't tackled it since. That was probably like a month ago now that I've read that. Yeah, and I was really enjoying it. This isn't a sign that I'm not enjoying the book. I just had to put it down. I just had to put it down, and I didn't intend to put it down for so long. It's just I've just been on a bit of a struggle, okay? And it's not the book, it's me. It's not you, it's me. It's like I'm breaking up with it, but I'm not, I promise. It's just taking some time, okay? So I will get back to this, and I did make a good amount of progress. I did make some good progress in it, just not as far as I wanted to get. Yeah, hopefully I'll try and like chip away a little bit at it through the month of May. If you don't know, this is the 4th book in the Stormlight Archive, Brandon Sanderson's like epic fantasy series. The first book, the old king has been murdered by these people called the Parshendi, and so the humans and the people within this kingdom are up in revolt and go into a war against the Parshendi to extract their revenge for his murder. But there's so much more going on to it than that. There's a lot of like really interesting magic and world building and interesting characters which can feel very real as well. There's a lot of depth to all the characters here because you have so many thousands of pages to explore them and explore what they're going through. So I definitely am excited to continue with this. It just didn't quite happen in April. There we go. Those are all of the books that I managed to read or start in April, and some of the bits and pieces that I got up to. Let me know how your reading month in April went. If you read anything good, please let me know, and thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my future videos. Bye.